Two of those senators, Labor's Kimberley Kitching and the Liberals' James Paterson. Kimberley, I'm also critical of Bettina Arndt's comments, but take this idea of stripping her of an Order of Australia. Don't you worry that if we establish that precedent, that a lot more people who've done great work in one area will lose an honour because they made a comment in another that is unpopular or which politicians are too scared to defend or the whatever? Where do we then draw the line?
I think, Andrew, her comments were offensive to suggest that the husband and father of this family, Hannah Clark and her three beautiful children, were somehow, he was being driven too far. That is offensive, and there is no excuse for that.
I agree with you with that.
The Governor-General did say today that they had received a large amount of correspondence on this issue, and the Council for the Order of Australia would be considering Ms Arndt's award. Honours are an honour to receive, and we don't know what's going to happen. The Order of the Council for the Order of Australia will make that decision.
James, does that worry you, that if you start stripping people of an award that they're given for one area because of comments in another, where does that stop? And who then starts drawing lines here?
I've admired Bettina Arndt's work in the past, particularly her advocacy for due process regarding sexual assault allegations on campus, and I don't think people should be condemned by the Senate just for going against the grain or having views that are not consistent with the zeitgeist. But what she said last week went far, far beyond that. I mean, 3 innocent children were burned alive by their father. This is a very, very different kettle of fish. So I think she does deserve the condemnation she's received. I also don't believe, though, that politicians should intervene in the awards and honours process. It is independent of politics for good reason. It's presided over by the Governor-General for good reason. It has public confidence in part because of that. So I don't think we should establish a political filter or political pressure on who receives those awards and when those awards should be taken away. It should be done in an arm's length way, and I think that's ultimately what will happen here.
Yeah, well, look, I don't like her comments at all for the reasons you've given and the ones I gave last night. But yeah, I'm just torn on this one, whether to take the award away. I wonder about the precedent here. To the bigger news, the speech last night by the head of ASIO saying there was a lot more spying going on here in Australia, though he didn't mention China by name, but it is China he means, Paterson.
Example I can reveal that a foreign intelligence service sent an agent to Australia. The agent lay dormant for many years, quietly building business and community links, all the while maintaining secret connection with their offshore handlers. The agent then started feeding his spy masters information about Australian dissidents, expatriate dissidents, which directly led to their harassment in Australia and harassment of their relatives overseas.
Kimberley, how serious is this? Not just this one particular thing about aspiring, but the general concept that a lot more spying going on and harassment of dissidents here and their families back home in China.
Well, the Director-General of ASIO doesn't give speeches very often, so this is a very important marker. He did also say that we are seeing levels of spying and foreign interference as we have not seen since the days of the Cold War. We are very lucky, Andrew, that we have such exceptional security agencies, and both sides of politics take their advice. It's a bipartisan issue and a bipartisan approach to take the advice of our security agencies. This is a very serious matter. Remember, we have had some breaches recently of the Australian Parliament House's email system. ANU has been hacked. We need to be careful, and we need to take the advice of our security agencies.
Yeah, but I think you are part of a group that wants a little bit more than this. So are you, James. Both of you seem to be part of a bipartisan group of MPs who think we should challenge China more forcibly. There was even a lovely illustration of you, the four of you, including Andrew Hastie, of course, all bearing guns. Tim Wilson as well, Liberal MP. What's the story here?
Well, I'll start, and James can you know, he will say his own, it's in his own words. But this is a group where we do reach across the chamber. We do discuss national security issues. It's not limited to just the four of us. The four of us were asked by the Times of London to give comment around Huawei's involvement in the British 5G network, and we gave some strong comment around, well, really whether that was a desirable development.
Answer no, because China will spy on them. But my point really is, what
we were
is
very
this group
disappointed
about?
by that.
Yeah, well, absolutely, you should be. James, what's this group about?
Andrew, that was a light-hearted take by the Herald Sun and Graphics Department on a very serious issue, which is that politicians from all sides of politics need to work together when we have shared objectives. And in this instance, I don't believe it's a left-right issue. It's a democracy, non-democracy issue. If you are concerned about Australia's sovereignty, if you're concerned about Australia's national interest, if you're concerned about our values, then we need to stand up and assert those in an environment, as the Director General of ASIO said, is facing unprecedented attempts at foreign interference. And clearly, one of those countries among those is China, who has the capacity and the intent to do so. So I'm very pleased to work with Kimberley or anyone else on the Labor side and crossbenchers too, who share those concerns and want to stand together.
Well, can I congratulate you both? I think it's so important that people on both sides of politics come together on an issue like this. And also Anthony Byrne of the Labor is also good on this. So yes. I think this should transcend politics, and I'm so glad to see you doing this. The ASIO boss last night also said that ASIO was investigating twice as many terrorism leads as a year ago. The threat was plateaued, but twice as many terrorism leads. In part, it seems from something that Home Affairs Minister Peter Dutton was saying, because of extremists coming back from overseas, which is a bit concerning. But while he said that the main threat still was Islamist terrorism, he did warn about the rise of right-wing racist groups as well and the terrorism threat from that. Kimberley, how serious do you think that is?
Well, I think if ASIO is pointing it out, it's serious. They are an exceptional intelligence agency. So I think there's probably a thin veneer, thin ice between hate speech and, you know, acts of terrorism. I think we've seen that in Christchurch, where 51 people were killed at a place of worship. In Norway, a few years ago, 69 young Labor Party members were on an island. They were shot to death by a right-wing terrorist. I mean, we must take this. We are just lucky that all plots have been foiled, other than, you know, Lint Cafe, but plots have been foiled by our intelligence agencies. If they are saying that this is a threat, then we must take that threat seriously.
And of course, there was a case in Germany where I think 9 people were killed by a crazy guy. Can I just go back to the China thing? James, the Sunday Age on the weekend reported that Caulfield Grammar School has scrapped its plan to name its new aquatic centre after a former student, the Olympic gold medalist Mack Horton. So, and it made this decision to protect its commercial interests in China. Now, Horton, of course, famously accused Chinese swimming superstar Sun Yang of being a drug cheat, refused to share a podium with him at the Olympics, and his name's mud in China. Now, I don't know the truth of this story, because the school then eventually put out a statement saying, oh, the story's wrong, no decision's actually been made. Well, maybe no, or maybe they simply got cold feet. So, hypothetically, I must now put the question, should Caulfield give in to China, or should it, we'll put it this way, should it now insist on naming its swimming centre after Mack Horton?
Andrew, I think the only option available to Caulfield Grammar now is to name their aquatic centre after Mack Horton because of the speculation, whether it's been true or untrue. Mack Horton deserves this honour because he's an outstanding Australian sportsman and a graduate of Caulfield Grammar, but not just because of that, because he's also shown incredible character and integrity and courage in making a very strong and I believe very correct stand against cheating in sport and drugs in sport. And that's exactly the kind of values that I would hope a school like Caulfield Caulfield Grammar is seeking to inculcate in their young people. Not just sporting achievement, but character and judgment. And I think Mack Horton has demonstrated that. So I really hope that Caulfield Grammar, regardless of the truth of these reports, embraces this opportunity to honour him appropriately.
I'm actually out of time, Kimberley. Can I just quickly get your take?
Well, I think this goes to the values-based interaction and engagement we have to have with China. We cannot allow that, those kind of considerations to override, the considerations of our values. And we've seen this is the latest in a number of incidents. Qantas, for example, about Taiwan, referring to the way they refer to Taiwan. University lecturers having Taiwan as a free state on maps and having to issue apologies. This seems to me to be the latest in a long line of these increasing examples.
I think that's right, Kimberley. No, well said. James Paterson, Kimberley Kitching, thank you both so much for your time.